Every time I think the community cannot exceed my expectations, they do. People that aren't aware made a top 30 list, top 30 all time. And people had varying opinions, and people had very strong opinions. But this was expected, because at the end of the day, top 30 lists, ranking, all that in One Piece doesn't make any sense. However, they're fun. The banter back and forth talking about these things, brilliant. The problem comes in when it starts to get toxic, when people vehemently disagree with what you're saying and they are insulting, they're disrespectful, and it turns nasty. Then you just separate yourselves from those people, right? Because it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoying other opinions. However, One Piece as a story, it's made for things like this. How One Piece fights are written, how characters are hyped up, how characters are devalued or undervalued, it's all a part of Oda's scheme. I think skipping fights and skipping major events, that's part of his plan. It's part of his whole thing, because if you don't know enough, you have to speculate, and if you speculate, it leads to more conversation and discussion. If we knew more than we did now, right? Like, if we knew exactly how strong everyone was, I don't think the community would be where it is now. I also realized the growing thing is like shitting on power scaling in the community, saying that's what the community has turned into. To those people, I say, are you giving the same energy to the lore videos, the videos dissecting, I don't know, Emerald City or Green Bit, or talking about the history of the Tentatas? Do you give the same energy that you give to power scaling videos the same way? Because I doubt you do, right? The thing is, the community has grown into what it is, not only because One Piece is great, but because the people around it discuss it so much. So I will never get mad at people power scaling per se. Some matchups do get redundant and stale and toxic, and I think that's the main thing when it gets toxic. But all in all, this toxicity, or this cesspool of just bad opinions, that's bred on purpose. Like, One Piece is made, and how One Piece is structured, this type of thing is going to happen even after the series ends, because I don't think Oda is going to expound upon a lot of things. The anime might, but Oda himself said the anime is a different medium. So using the anime to validate some of your opinions may not be the right way to go. And even talking to some people about different power scaling things, they do not use the anime at all, because the anime takes certain liberties that you cannot use in a power scaling debate, because it's just so far-fetched sometimes. But some things it's hard not to use, because the anime fleshes things out all right sometimes. It's pretty good, and you're like, well, that makes a lot of sense based on how the anime did it. That wasn't in the source material. So the anime even adds to the vagueness of what Oda is trying to convey. So with that being said, what is power scaling? What do people use to power scale? Well, it's certain factors that people use. But the main thing that I don't understand why people don't get this notion is that people weigh things differently. From titles to feats to portrayal, people have different levels of weight on these things. So, for instance, Dragon and Mihawk. Dragon hasn't done much in the series, much of anything. The strongest person Dragon has stopped himself is Smoker. And this is Smoker in Logtown, right? Not even Vice Admiral Smoker. Stopped him. However, Dragon is a consensus top 10 ranked character. Why? Well, Dragon has the title of the world's most wanted man. In One Piece, in a show about pirates and where bounties are important to a character's lore and overall status in the One Piece world, you have to give some credence to the world's most wanted man. However, his bounty isn't just because of strength, obviously, it's because he's leading a faction against the world government, which is the most dangerous thing to them, because I don't think anything is more important than someone's existence. And for the world government, the revolutionaries, they're trying to erase their existence, but not necessarily their existence overall, just how they're structured with the celestial dragons. But that's besides the point. Another reason is because Dragon is the father of the main character and the son of a top 3 character ever. So going off shonen logic, Dragon should be very formidable. Of course, theories that have become, I don't want to say canon, but recognized as partially true, or they have a high propensity to be correct. Dragon was a former CP0 member or a former admiral. So judging off of that, and highballing and lowballing, it varies based on the person you're talking to. With Mihawk, his title of the world's greatest swordsman, and that goes back to who's a swordsman in One Piece. Is it anyone that wields a sword? It's really a difficult thing, but some people, because Mihawk is the world's greatest swordsman, they put him top 5 because he's the world's greatest, and the world's greatest, we respect those titles. Some people have them and they give them different weight. So then how do we run into issues? Well, there's no percentage and there's no actual formula or equation to put different weight on different things in the series. Feats that characters have accomplished. Some things have been off-screened. No, most things have have been off-screened. So when you talk about different things characters have done, you can't really pinpoint the actual thing in the canon manga. You can just go off of what people say. So, for instance, Akainu versus Aokiji. We know that fight took place. We know Akainu won. But because of the story, people say that Akainu probably cheated. Or Aokiji gave up. Or they were working together and Aokiji chose to lose so that he could be the person to represent Sword. And because we didn't see the fight, we don't get any more context of the fight other than Sengoku wanted Aokiji to be Fleet Admiral, the Gorosei wanted Akainu, that's it. But people use their own headcanon, and because of that, they don't hold that feat to a high regard. For Akainu as a character, one of the few characters to go up against consensus top 15 characters of all time, or people that we rate very highly in the series. Aokiji, an admiral, Whitebeard, a top 3 character in as far as strength. But the point is, there's so many arguments going on based on a very inconsistent arc in One Piece in Marineford. And people use that to validate certain things. Like, again, for people with Mihawk and the title, right? You have him up here, top 5 with the title, right? Rival of Shanks, before he was a Yonko so many years ago. Then people bring him down because at Marineford, he talked Vista down. Personality isn't factored in. We get into this mosh pit of opinions, and so people start trashing you because you don't agree that Mihawk is 13 as opposed to 16. So in a nutshell, feats are hard to go by because sometimes the base isn't set. What I mean is, we would get a feat from a character, and because there was no basis of this other character, you can't substantiate how strong said character is because we didn't know how strong this other character was in the first place. So where do we go from here? And another thing with feats, they lack context. Before it got revealed about the Rocks Pirates, right? There were hints throughout the story that could indicate that Whitebeard was a part of it. Big Mom, Kaido. Shiki was never really hinted towards at all. Like, Shiki was a surprise. However, after the Reverie, or during the Reverie, Garp talked about the Rocks Pirates. It was Hina talked about the Rocks Pirates with Garp. And it said Garp was responsible for taking down the Rocks Pirates. I disagreed. I disagreed with the story because I said, there's no way Garp took down this entire crew by himself. We need context. I got the context in chapter 957, in which it said Garp and Roger took down the Rocks Pirates. But people didn't even realize in that panel, in that chapter, there were other Marines around there. So if it's showing other Marines, I'm assuming Roger had his crew with him as well. But that's the thing. Some people may factor that in. Some people may not, because people just look at it and say it took Garp and Roger to take down Zebek, and Whitebeard was on his crew, and Big Mom and Kaido, so there's no way they're even close to Zebek and Garp, or Zebek, Garp, and Roger. I'm like, we don't have any context. We have no idea what happened. All we know is that Whitebeard elevated himself to the point that even Roger couldn't beat him. I already talked about them fighting for 3 days and no one giving an inch, even though Roger had the vastly superior crew based on hype. Because breaking it down really quickly, you have Roger, a top 3 character. Rayleigh, going off of what some people think about him, a top 10 character at worst. Scopper, if we're judging off of Rayleigh, a top 15 character at worst. Then we go to Whitebeard's crew. Whitebeard, a top 3 character. If you use the same logic, Whitebeard shouldn't be top 3 because he was on Zebek's crew, right? But let's dismiss that for a second. Whitebeard, a top 3 character. Oden died really young, right? Based on what he did to a young Kaido, if you want to use it, you can say he's top 15 as well, right? Vista is nowhere near the top 30 back then. He's not in the top 30 now. Jozu isn't. Rakio, Whitey Bay, none of these people are even close. So, if you have that many dominant people, how do you fight for 3 days? Well, obviously, Braga, they weren't taking it seriously. Roger just said the chapter before, this is his final opportunity to go all out. So what are we saying? Betrayal as well. Betrayal is just, oh my God. There's no way to quantify Betrayal, because some people hold Betrayal to a different level. Like for me, I think Dragon has top tier Betrayal, and I'm going off of some shonen logic as well. But I think Dragon is granted respect even though he hasn't done anything. The same for Shanks. He hasn't done much of anything, and he even has blemishes, but Betrayal has him demanding respect. He went to Whitebeard's ship, destroyed some of the ship, clashed with Whitebeard equally, split disguise. People like using that. Oh, split disguise. Okay. At this point, I want to know just how much Conqueror's Haki is going to factor into overwhelming fights or top tier fights. I just want to know that. But regardless, Shanks has top tier Betrayal. He is a master swordsman because he was rivals back in the day with the world's greatest swordsman now, but he got permanently scarred by Blackbeard without his fruit. I know in a previous video I said Shanks lost to Blackbeard, and even though that wasn't said, let me just highlight what I meant with this proverbial L, because for Shanks and the hype around his character, I think Blackbeard took a W, right? That's why I say Shanks lost. It wasn't a literal thing, right? Because the W for Blackbeard comes from being able to scar someone who is now a Yonko without having any of your two prized powers that people say is the reason for your ascension. And you're able to do that, and you did that without your powers, and it got to the point where Shanks went to Whitebeard to warn him about the Blackbeard that knew of the past. Where Blackbeard of the past, Shanks respected him enough to say he's above your commanders right now, or what Ace was right now. So that feat and that portrayal elevates Blackbeard. So that's what the W meant, not a literal loss, because just because you got a scar doesn't mean you lost. However, I don't see any scars on Blackbeard, but portrayal is very difficult. Rayleigh's portrayal is top tier. Right hand of the Pirate King, seemingly a master in Conqueror's Haki, observation Haki, armament Haki. He said that if he was in his prime, he would be able to save the Straw Hats, meaning he should defeat Kizaru and save the Straw Hats. How do we know that? No, seriously, like, what has been shown based on the past or the flashbacks to think that Rayleigh could defeat Kizaru in the time to save the Straw Hats from Kuma? We couldn't beat the Whitebeard Pirates in 3 days. Do you guys understand there's inconsistency in certain things? But he has top tier portrayal. And then people use the thing about them saying we can't take on 2 legends at the same time, so Garp is comparing him to Whitebeard. No matter Rayleigh's strength right now, he could be as strong as Gaimon. He's still a legend. So no matter what Garp said about taking on legends, 2 legends at the same time, it does not equate to Rayleigh being as strong as Whitebeard. I will say this, Garp knows of Rayleigh's strength, and he understands what Rayleigh brings to the table. It doesn't make sense because they would have to send an admiral to take on Rayleigh. So deploying an admiral who could potentially get hurt against Rayleigh because he is an amazing character, and going to fight Whitebeard at the same time doesn't make sense. It in no way says that Rayleigh is as strong as Whitebeard. It is just acknowledging Rayleigh's past strength and the fact that no matter what, he's a legend, so he deserves respect. And that's not to downplay Rayleigh, but people use this all the time. And I'm just like, guys, let's think a little bit, because people are saying that I'm not thinking about these things. These things we have to factor in, right? These are all arguments that people use in these power scaling debates. So people put Rayleigh super high because they're like, well, he was compared to Whitebeard. He must have been strong as Whitebeard back then. That's what Garp said. But people use it. And with One Piece, it's vague. Things are just thrown out there. So you just use them. The final thing is titles and judging people off titles. I could have put Momoshiki and Shiton on the list. They said they were admiral candidates, but what does that really mean? Yeah, it seems like they were strong enough to be considered, but they didn't get the position. So it was hard to say, oh, I'm gonna just put him right below admiral level or right below the admirals, but does that mean that they're stronger than Luffy and Katakuri right now? How far is Luffy and Katakuri from admiral level? I think personally Magellan, if he was an admiral, would be devastating because his power is phenomenal, right? But I don't think he's beaten an admiral. He wasn't on my top 30 list, but he almost made it. But also with titles, that's why Green Bull made the list, because he's an admiral. And people didn't like that because they're like, oh, we haven't seen anything from Green Bull, but we've seen enough from the admirals to understand that if you have that title, it's a certain level of strength that it requires. And Doflamingo even said Green Bull and Fujitora, they're 2 monsters that were recruited. You guys don't respect that at all? Certain things I just wonder about. You know, so even with Kong, the last 2 fleet admirals, not including Kong, are in the top 10. But people were mad that Kong was on the list because he hasn't done anything, even though he's the former fleet admiral. When Garp and Sengoku were running around, even though fleet admiral was used as a level when gauging Big Mom, even though it's some inconsistency with admirals and vice admirals because of what Garp did, there is enough evidence to validate the opinion of Kong being a top tier character. It's a lot to factor in. And this isn't to explain my list per se, this is to understand power scaling in One Piece. Sometimes people try to use real world logic, like Luffy being light speed for dodging lasers, or Kizaru moving at the speed of light, or Kuma how fast he can reflect himself, or Blackbeard with his dark hole, Fujitora with his raging tiger. It's a lot to go off of, and I want you guys to understand there is no set formula. The final thing before I end this video, the gaps that people create in their minds. And I'm gonna leave this with you because I'm not going to fully explain this because I'm saving this for when I break down the top 30, right? I'm gonna show you guys just how silly some people look and sound sometimes. But think about the gaps that we create in our minds when somebody ranks a character. Think about 1 to 30, the gap between those characters. Some of it is downright asinine. If anything you take from this video, go back and look at your top 30 list, either your top 30 all time or your top 30 right now. What is the gap between 1 and 30? Then work your way up between 1 and 29, 1 and 25, 1 and 15, 1 and 10. What is the gap there? And then tell me, is it substantial enough to rage? That's what I want you guys to do. Other than liking and subscribing, that's what I want you guys to do with this video, all right? And if you don't agree with me, that's fine. That's built in to One Piece power scaling. As much as I enjoy the lore and different other aspects of One Piece, power scaling is fun to me. People disagree with you and they say you shouldn't make videos anymore because you power scale, and I don't agree with you. And I'm like, how sad are you? To those people, I don't really give a lot of time, but it's funny. It's funny to me. So give me your thoughts. How do you power scale? To me, there's no formula to this. It's just how you feel, how you rank certain characters, sometimes how you come into certain arguments or how you come into certain things, like with Whitebeard versus Akainu. People come into the power scaling debate with them on different levels, and that fight being viewed completely differently. So it's so much. It's so much. I enjoy it. It's fun. But guys, give me your thoughts. How do you power scale? How do you navigate through the power scaling mosh pit? Because for me, sometimes it's a challenge, right? But most times, more often than not, it's a lot of fun. Give me your thoughts. Make sure to like the video and subscribe, as I mentioned before. Follow me on Twitter at BragoDAce. Follow me on Instagram at BragoD. Shout out to my patrons. Thank you guys so much. You guys support me and I really appreciate it. Again, like, subscribe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. Yerp.